I sure wish I had the sound of a horse, because tomorrow, maybe around this time, I'm going to try to get down, well, maybe a bit later than that, maybe 10 o'clock or so, get down to the fairgrounds of the Equine Center, the Fordyce Equine Center, to see the heart of the horse, all that. You know, we had them on the other day, and tomorrow's their big day, tomorrow and Sunday. And that's when you'll see 30 horses with 30 trainers. Those horses had nothing much on them. Some of them had a little training, but most of them did not. Most of them have been at rescues, and they've been totally rehabbed, and they've been made into just beautiful animals, and we showed them to you the other day. And they are up for auction. Now, the people who are going to auction on them, though, have already submitted applications. You have to do it by that. And those applications have all been checked, too, to make sure that the horses will go to a good, stable place and not end up again in some sort of trouble. But I'm just so anxious to see what they've done, because I'm a horse person, and, you know, I'm just really thrilled for that. And the horses that, you know, we showed you the other day, they look like they're show horses. They look like they're highly bred and raised, beautiful animals, and that's what they've turned into. But today on the show, we're going to talk with Kevin Parkinson. He is a Democrat running for 7th Ward in the city of Jackson for city council. That's the seat vacated by Virgie Lindsay. Virgie Lindsay, yeah, that's it. She was, you know, like the queen of Belhaven. But welcome, Kevin. Belhaven is just a small part of what the 7th District is. If you don't know, we do have a map of it. It's huge, for one thing. It starts up at Meadowbrook and goes on down to Terry Road, bordered by the river on the east side, and I'm not quite too sure on the west side how far you go. But you have the airport, too. Anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Mary, so I appreciate your time.
Well, sure. You have never run before. You're a newbie.
That's right. Yes.
So what about the whole thing said, you know, you got to do it?
Sure. Well, I am an educator. I'm a teacher and a former school principal, and I was able to be the principal of Midtown Public Charter School in Jackson. And because that's a charter school, anybody from the city can go to it. It's not necessarily for one particular neighborhood. And so we had students from North Jackson, South Jackson, East Jackson, West Jackson, and downtown Jackson, Central Jackson. And as a result of that, when I would go do home visits or when I would go to community events to support my students, I wasn't just going to one particular place. I was going to every corner of the city.
Wonderful.
And when I did that, I can honestly say that there's something truly special and amazing in each one of our neighborhoods. But also, there are some big glaring challenges, and being able to see each of those neighborhoods real close up really motivates you to want to say, we got to do something about this. So,
Jackson is a diamond in the rough. It's still in the rough. You know,
that's
the rough
right.
is there. I mean, you got to get rid of the rough.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think both the duality is true. There's both of those things are true. And I think there are some politicians who will want to come up, and if they're running for Jackson, they'll just want to bash everything that's wrong with Jackson. And in the reality, like, there is so much diamond there. Like, there's so many amazing things and things that I love. And so my goal is, but we also have to recognize the challenges. And I don't think that makes you a cynic to point out those challenges. That's just reality. That's just real. So my goal is to continue all the things that make Jackson amazing. Because here's the thing. My wife and I both work remotely. We could literally live anywhere in the world. And we choose to live right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Our kids go to JPS schools. We love Jackson. There's so much about it that makes it awesome. So we want to continue all those things that make Jackson really, really special, while at the same time addressing some of those urgent challenges that we face.
Well, yes. You know, thinking of somebody they still live in Belhaven, that was so heartbreaking was Megan Allen West.
Yes.
Who, you know, they were attacked on Halloween a few years ago.
Right in front of my house.
Oh, wow.
Right in front of my house.
And that's so devastating.
It's terrible.
It doesn't, you know, it happens to other people, but, you know, it happened to somebody who was able to tell the story of what happened.
Right,
you know,
so eloquently.
Yes.
And their family is the sweetest. I mean, the Wests are just top-notch people.
And they love Jackson, and they love Belhaven, and they're still
love
there.
It. Yes, they're still here. By the grace of God, they're still here.
Absolutely. Because, Belhaven is always kind of a magic place, in a lot of ways. I used to, when I moved here a long time ago, and I used to tell Bert, "Oh, boy, Belhaven is so pretty." He goes, "Oh, you don't want to live there." I said, "Why not?" "Well, because it kind of rocks around a little bit, and you have to get used to it. There's a crack in the wall. Oh, you got to put a picture on that crack."
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Yes.
Well, he was a native Jacksonian, so
he knew.
But,
we have parts of our house, certain doors lock easier than others because the house will raise and then the house will lower at various temperatures, and so you make it work. But it's you get a lot of
charm. It's a charming. It's a charming place. Charming. Yes, it is really charming. And then you go from Meadowbrook Road, and there's some charm there, down through Belhaven, but then you come down toward Terry Road, and there's some heartbreak.
There is. I mean, there absolutely is, and. I think about the Savannah Street neighborhood, and I've talked to residents there, and they'll tell me they're like, you see it, every third or fourth house is completely burned up, and they'll say, I've lived here my whole life. It wasn't always like this.
Right.
I mean, there's parts of Jackson that have never. I mean, Savannah Street has never been like Belhaven. I mean, there's parts where there's always been struggle, but nowhere near the level of struggle that we're seeing now. So
yeah, it is heartbreaking. And I understand that some of those houses, too, are burned by meth makers.
It's meth makers, but I think the biggest culprit is there are homes that, maybe there's a senior citizen living in there or whatever, and they pass away, and there's no clear next of kin, and so the house remains vacant, and then homeless people will move into the house, and then they'll start a fire in order to stay warm, and the fire it torches the entire house. Our poor fire department is at their wits' end. I mean, their own buildings are their own buildings. They've got rats and possums and I mean just falling apart. But then they're also dealing with burned house after burned house after burned house after burned house, and they're exhausted. They're exhausted, and they're not often brought into the conversation around first responders. I mean, I am massively appreciative of all of our first responders. And sometimes we talk just about the police, which the police are awesome. Yes. I mean, the police are...
I'll have to tell a story about how I think that Jackson is in very good hands from a personal experience.
Please.
Well, I'll just say, a few years ago, about 4 years ago, I guess it was, on the 4th of July, a friend of mine had sold her car in New Orleans but hadn't bought a new one, so she took the train up and asked me to pick her up, so I did. And she wanted to go to the Honda dealer downtown because she'd seen some Subarus that she liked. And we went by, and it was the 4th of July. It was a Sunday, too. But the gate was open, so we went in there, and we found the Subaru, and we got out, and we looked at it. Yeah, it's real nice. And we were probably 5 minutes or so. Then we got back in my car, and the gate was closed.
Oh, no. You were locked in the dealership?
All the gates were locked. I mean, I just feel like, how stupid am I? And my friend's like, what do we do? I said, well, first of all, we'll call JPD. We called the police department. It wasn't an answer, so I said, now we'll call the fire department. And I got the fire department on the line, and I said, hey, this is Mary Wieden, and I'm locked in the Honda police. And the guy goes, is this the real Mary Wieden? I said, yes, it is. He goes,
in the flesh.
I listen to your show all the time. I said, thank you very much. I said, how do you get out of here? And I said, please, if you're going to send somebody, don't run a siren because we don't need siren. Anyway, so they came. They sent a wonderful crew of guys. They were wonderful.
Very discreet. They got you out.
They weren't snarky. No, couldn't get out. We couldn't get out. Well, no, just no way to get out. But they were very, very nice. And so they were going around checking the locks. They had several. And then all of a sudden, I noticed this police officer coming across. She parked her car a little bit away, and Officer Victoria was her name. And so I said, I went up to her and I said, how'd you know about this? And she goes, oh, I heard it on the scanner.
Oh my gosh.
I said, well, and they had those big things you can't drive through. Anyway, she was as nice as she could be, just so helpful. And in fact, I think she trained with now Chief Wade. But anyway, so she got with the firemen, and they all went around checking all the locks, and they're just also nice. And, we can't do anything to help. We can't break these locks because we don't have replacement locks, and it's not a life or death situation. So anyway, the police officer said, oh, you'll move your car out of the way and call a friend to have somebody come and pick you up. Okay, thank you very much. But they were all so polite, courteous, and helpful. And I thought, if they're all like that, and I didn't just think it, I said it, then the city of Jackson is in good hands. And we really do have some wonderful responders.
We do.
Yes.
We really do. And they need support.
So thank you all out there.
Yes, thank you, first responders, including police and fire and our ambulance technicians and all first responders are heroes. So yes.
So let's say, okay, so now you become the city council person for Ward 7, and you worry about these people that you were just telling us about, that with those places. So what do you do as a member of city council? What do you do to help those people?
Yes. Well, the very first thing that we need is solid data reporting mechanisms in place. So when I became the principal of Midtown Public Charter School, the school was on the verge of closure. It had failed 3 years in a row, and by state law, if you fail 4 years in a row, they close your school down.
As a regular public school?
As a public charter.
Oh, as a charter.
So charters are actually held more accountable.
Oh.
More accountable. So we had my first year was the school's fourth year, and we had 1 year to get urgent results, and we did. But one thing that we did right away is I put data reporting mechanisms in place. So I used to make data reports. It was no fancy software. It was just a Word document. But it had, here's our attendance data, here's our academic data, here's our behavior data, here's our safety data, here's our survey data. So we would see how many kids were absent last month, or what are test scores like last month, or how many kids do we have to suspend last month, or when we pull the fire alarm, how long does it take to kids to get out of the building, or whatever. And we had this, and we literally did it monthly, and I would circulate it in full transparency with all the staff. We would have a faculty meeting each month, and we would look at the data, and we would share it with our board, and we would share it with everybody. And we were able to see, I didn't have to say anything. I mean, we just looked at the numbers, and people said, well, there's our problem this month. None of the kids are coming to school. How do we get attendance up? Or there's the issue. But if you don't, you say, Don, I agree. But if you don't have the data, all you have is feelings. All you have is vibes. And so you need solid data. Now, in theory, we have a 311 system. But I will tell you that 311 system is highly inconsistent. If you leave the building right now and try to make a 311 call to report a pothole, I give it a 50% chance you'll be able to get through.
So to transfer that knowledge and that ability into city government, what would you do then? It would be the whole district. You'd say how many fires, how many empty buildings, how 100%. Many murders, how many robberies, people, et cetera, et cetera.
100%. And Chief Wade is already doing this on the safety end. I went to a meeting of his. He had each precinct captain up, and he grilled them. He said, pull your data up. They all had data. And he said, okay, why is this number up? Why is that number down? I mean, we need to do that citywide. So we need to say, okay, how many people called last month about drainage issues? What can we do to lower the number of calls about drainage issues this month? How many people called in a pothole last month? What can we do to lower the number of people who call potholes? And you look at where the data is. Oh, we're having all kinds of drainage issue in this one neighborhood. All right, let's go look at what's going on in that neighborhood. I mean, it seems commonsensical, but right now we don't have those systems in place. So step one is you need a clear data reporting mechanism, and then you have to share that data transparently, and then you just make a plan and you tackle it.
Yeah, I'd like to see that happen in Jackson. That would be wonderful. First of all, I think the city needs a public works director.
Oh gosh,
doesn't
yes.
it? You know,
we need an engineer. We don't even have a plumber. Do you know that? So if there's a plumbing issue in the city, we contract that out 100% of the time.
That's crazy.
So I don't have the official numbers on this, but we've got to be spending $100,000 on plumbing each year. Well, we can hire a full-time plumber for $40,000, $50,000. I mean, come on. And then we need to do. I mean, like, these are things where we can handle it. So yeah, we need public works. We need an engineer. You
know what else you need by way of public works? There was this wonderful guy. So you've been here since 2009, so you would know. Robert Miller used to come on the show a lot and talk about all this kind of stuff. And I said something about your schematic, so you know where everything is. He said, we don't have one. So there's no schematic. You would think that there would be something. There are a few old papers around and show you where the pipes are underneath the streets. You sort of need to know that. And a few things, but nothing yet to this day on computer where you can go and see. And for instance, it'd be like if there was a water leak, a pipe leaking on Riverside Drive, and you think it's over here by this block, but then the guys get down there, it's a block away.
Wow.
So stuff like that. You know,
yeah.
That is, first of all, you need a public works director,
yeah.
and you need to have a schematic. You need to know where everything is. I mean,
yes.
How can you not?
Correct. Well, I do worry. I mean, we already know a lot of the challenges that we're facing. But
we know.
But
crime,
I do fear
streets.
I do fear that it might be even worse than we think, and so I worry that
which part, crime or streets or infrastructure.
What we don't know about once we get into the next administration gets into city government, and once they start seeing, where's our money and where's things.
Exactly, because
I've had
a current city councilman say, the mayor wouldn't tell them to tell the city council members how much money the city has. You don't know who the money is, and you also need to know who's on the payroll and what their job is and how much money they're making. You don't know that now because you can't get that now.
Right,
you need that.
Right, 100%. And I've done some work to get to know all of the mayoral candidates, and so no matter who the next mayor is, I think having a really close working relationship between the mayor and the city council is just going to be crucial.
Well, so far the guy leading, of course, is John Horn. In fact, somebody even sends this comment about Shirley Horn will have a more competent office. Whether it's John Horn or somebody else, I think the answer to that is a big yes. I mean, that will happen.
Yes.
So by the way, folks, if you'd like to contact, this is Kevin Parkinson, Democrat running for 7th Ward Council office, and you can call him up at 888-808-8637. That's how you call us up. And you can text us at 601-879-4395. That's 601-879-4395. And you can watch us on supertalk.fm/Mary so you can see what we look like. What is somebody saying about Shade? Is he talking about Schadenfreude over here? Somebody's talking about something. Was that Schadenfreude, Lance? Was he talking about somebody talking about Schaden?
I don't know what you're referring to.
I thought I saw something about that. What I was seeing out of the corner of my eye. Maybe my eye wasn't reading right, which is a distinct possibility, even though I do have 20/20. But anyway, there'll be a lot of things that will be changing in the next mayor's office.
Yes,
whoever it is, and like I say, it's all pointing to John Horn. But you've got a Republican in there, and you've got some independents in there. We've had Senator Horn on a few times, but not since he won the second one. I'm sure he's pretty worn out, but we hope that we'll get a conversation with the next mayor as soon as possible. And we've had a couple of independents that are running for that job as well. So that's how you can get a hold of us. So there we go. I knew we were coming up on a break here. It's Mary Wieden You, and it's Kevin Parkinson. You can call him up and text him if you'd like, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Stay right where you are.
How does a man?
We've got Kevin Parkinson here in the studio, Democrat running for 7th Ward in the city of Jackson. And we were talking about 311. Here's a comment from a listener. Took me 3 times to get the mayor's office to answer 311 about an abandoned car in Bellhaven. The car has since been removed, but probably thanks to the hard work of JPD.
Yeah.
Right? Is that how that works?
That's exactly it. It's inconsistent. It's inconsistent.
Well,
that doesn't sound inconsistent. That sounds vacant.
Nobody was home.
I'll say what nobody wants to say.
Really, that's pretty awful. What do you think about the airport? It's still in the hands of another court. Even though Judge Carlton Reeves at the big district said
he put it down. Yep.
Yeah, it's like, come on, you people, stop coming here. Don't do this. Get yourselves together and solve your problem. But what do you think? Do you have input into that either as a candidate or as a resident, or would you, as a member of City Council, have any input into it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think the airport is a tremendous resource for the city, and I actually think it's getting better and better and better. I fly a reasonable amount, and there's occasional things where I'm like, come on, y'all, we got to do better.
Escalators
that work.
Bathrooms.
The bathrooms have been clean when I've been there. I haven't had a big issue with restrooms being unclean, and there's more flight options. So there's, in fact, I'm leading a training for the Tennessee Board of Regents next week, and there's a direct flight now from Jackson to Nashville.
Yes.
And so I am thrilled about that. So they're increasing, and I heard they just brought back a Chicago Direct flight, I'm not positive about that, but we're seeing more flight options.
I've taken that one in the past, I think.
Yeah, yes. Well, so Southwest used to be, you may recall, Southwest was in the Jackson Airport, and then they pulled out of the Jackson Airport, and now they're back in the Jackson Airport. But
they have high hopes.
Yes. The first time they were in there, they did fly directly to Chicago.
Yeah. Chicago and D.C., I think, was another one.
And so they're getting more flight options. From my experience, the restrooms are clean. The building is clean, and they're getting more dining options. So they just put in 2 new Dunkin' Donuts, and they've improved the security mechanism that you walk through. That's all been upgraded. So I think the airport is actually on the up and up. Now, is it flawless? No, it is not flawless.
What's the bad part about it? What's the
well, as you mentioned, there's an escalator on, I think that's the east end of, if I'm not mistaken. But when you walk in,
it's right near the main part, which you got to haul your stuff up.
Yeah, the escalator's there. But if you walk on the other side, there's an elevator. So again, we could do better, and I would like to see even more flight options. I mean, I would like to see. I was in Richmond a few weeks ago, and I mean, their airport was very busy, and their city was busy, and so we could do more, but I think it's actually on the improvement. I think it's getting better.
So the law, as you know, the law says that there would be a regional board of directors, kind of like, sort of like the reservoir a little bit. But it's a regional airport. It's the only one in the state, the biggest, except for I think down on the
Gulfport's got it. It's the second.
Is it their own? Yeah. Oh, it was a civilian one. Because I'm thinking of the air base. But
I'm trying to Keesler.
Keesler, yeah, but that's not for people.
That's not for
that's not for real people.
I have a question though regarding the airport. I hadn't been in. I haven't really had time to fly or go anywhere.
Didn't we know somebody around here who was going to be flying, and they were supposed to tell us how it was? But anyway,
but my question is, to Mr. Parkinson, what led us down the path to where the airport has become such a liability, an issue, a topic of discussion? Where did it all go wrong? You've been around since 2009, so you probably have some more insight that you could share with because when you get back to the seeds of things, then you can kind of figure out how to steer it a little better. So what is your opinion on that?
Good question.
Well, I don't think it's any surprise to anybody that our city government has failed over the past for a while, and we have lacked the ability to perform even basic city services. And so I think under that context, I think it's only natural for state leaders and others to say, where do we need to push in, and where do we need to examine this? And so I think you're seeing that at all levels. There's questions about, do we need to push into the schools? Do we need to push into the water system?
We're going to get into that too. Yeah,
do we need to sit into the airport? Do we need to sit into the stadiums? Do we need to sit? Do we need to push into just every aspect of city governance? And so I think that that's natural. What my response would be is, I don't think it should be an all or nothing thing. I think we should sort of take these things on a case by case basis. And in the case of the airport, at this present time, I actually think that it's improving. And so for me personally, I don't see the need for regional control over the airport at this time, but I think we monitor it. I think it's fair to assess that, and I can appreciate why people would be examining that. And I think, you can look at other aspects, the schools, the zoo, the stadium, water, sewer. You can look at all other, Capitol Police. You look at all other aspects, and I think instead of an all or nothing, I think you take it on a sort of a case-by-case basis.
Well, I think like with the airport, that's a prime example of it's people. It's not, the airport as an entity didn't do anything. It's the people who are quote-unquote running it. Yep. And if they're not competent to run an airport, then they need to be gone.
Yes.
And the mechanism of getting them there, that needs to change too. It can't be whatever these people are. Well,
and one thing, we get where so many problems can emanate to the top, where you sit back, and I was a stockbroker for a long time, and we had this term when everything went crazy and you couldn't make heads or tails of anything, and all you were doing is researching and looking for answers and digging and trying to find, you would have paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
How do we ensure that with all of these issues and all of the solutions and all of the things, how do we ensure that we get something done? like you said, taking steps rather than sitting back going, oh, we got to do all this, but yet we don't have the resources to do it.
That's true.
How do we get there?
Yeah, I love that you said that too. My full-time job is to train educators on decision-making science, and so decision paralysis
That's interesting, yeah. Because you explain that briefly. You're there, but you got to know how you got there. Explain that. Or how you do your decision. And
to explain my work in decision-making science?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things with that. So a few things happened all at the same time. One, I was working for a nonprofit organization, and one of my projects was I was working with what we call pre-service teachers. So these are people who are about to enter the field of education. And one of the things that we were trying to do with these pre-service teachers is better prepare them for the challenges that they're about to face. Because there's a large number of people. Education is one of the worst fields for retention. We have it's close to 50% of people don't last 5 years. I mean, it's just nuts. And so we were trying to adjust that. And one of the things that we were doing is trying to get educators to pre-service educators to understand what specifically makes teaching difficult so that you could be prepared to go into it. And a lot of the answers are obvious and well publicized, right? Like large class sizes, limited resources, increased accountability pressure, this, that, the other. But we also discovered there was a secret culprit that was so pervasive that even a lot of educators themselves were unable to articulate it. And that was the sheer volume and complexity of the choices that they make each day. So a student asks you, can I go to the bathroom? In your mind, you've got 25 questions running through your brain. You're thinking, what's my bathroom policy? Where's my bathroom pass? What is he going to miss if he's gone? Does he really have to go to the bathroom, or is he just trying to get out of class? How can I get him caught up when he gets back? And all these questions are going through your mind in a second while you're also dealing with the other 25 kids in your class and the business of education. And decisions like that happen constantly throughout the day. And so you get a lot of the decision paralysis, you get a lot of the decision fatigue, and teachers go home at the end of the day and they're like, why am I so tired? And it's like, well, you've just been thinking nonstop for 8-9 hours. And so that happened. And then the other thing that happened was I went to Columbia University for my graduate studies, and I took a course in decision-making science. So there is a field of study that's 6 decades old about how humans typically make decisions and how they can more optimally make decisions. And it includes, it's not a ragtag group of scientists. It's folks like Daniel Kahneman and Richard Thaler who have won Nobel Prizes for their contribution in the field. So we have a group of educators who are completely burnt out because they're making decisions each day. And we have a field of study that's done at the highest level on how humans typically make decisions and how they can more optimally do so. And I became part of this community that said, why don't we get this information to educators? And so
now you got to transfer it to to the city, city.
Yes. And so I've been studying decision-making science for a while now, and I can see things like decision paralysis and things that can hold people back. But again, I think it comes to let's get a data reporting mechanism in place. Let's see where our hotspots are, and it's incrementalism. It's we're not going to solve all of these problems tomorrow. It's okay. We have last month 50 people called in with drainage issues. Can we fix 20 of them? What can we do over the next 30 days to go out and let's do one per day, or let's look at the hotspots. Where is this happening? And let's centralize it there. And so it's a daunting task, but we've seen turnaround efforts all over the place. I know you spent quite a bit of time in Detroit. I'm not sure if you've
been there in a long time, but
I was just going to ask.
It's coming back. That's all. I haven't been there in years now. It's coming back. And if that big city, and we talked about this with one of the other candidates the other day, with who we're talking about, his name, Ron Aldridge.
Sure.
So we talked with him the other day about that. In a big old city, and that's a huge, big old city. If they can do it as a big old city, and it's a big old place, why can't Jackson, which is a much smaller city, and it had so much going for it, and like my husband would say to me, "Oh, that'll never happen. This will never, this is a lovely little city, blah, blah, blah." It happened. And so if you put it back together, I would think it would be less timely if, and this is people out there, get together and stop the constant fighting, constant bickering. That's human nature, I realize, but we don't live in human nature. We live here.
I'll tell you, I'll go into neighborhoods and Battlefield will say, "Well, I'm sick of Midtown getting everything," and then Midtown will say, "Well, I'm sick of Fondren getting everything," and Fondren will say, "Well, I'm sick of Bellhaven getting anything," and then Bellhaven says, "I'm sick of downtown getting everything."
Yeah.
Well, and that's a statewide issue too. We hear the same thing.
Exactly.
Everybody's fighting for those non-infinite dollars.
And you know what? If you've seen any of we've seen them over the course of our lives, but pictures of the Earth from space, most recently, and you look at, and we're this tiny little ball. That's our whole planet.
Small blue
it's
dot.
like, for God's sakes, why can't some people in one city stop it and get something done?
Yes.
And get it done right. It can be done.
It can be done, but
that's not pie in the sky. It can be done, but it comes from people.
Yes.
And I'm going to take another break here. It's Mary Wieden You, and this is Kevin Parkinson here on the show with us, who wants to be the city councilman in the 7th Ward. We'll be back. We go back with our final segment with Kevin Parkinson, Democrat, looking to be the 7th Ward member of Jackson City Council. Next Friday, by the way, we've got Ashby Foote on. He is a Ward 1, and he gave up the party to run as an independent. He'll be on. That'll be interesting. And by the way, Dr. Glenn Antizzo is going to be with us on Tuesday. Boy, what a time for him, because he's into politics and history while we're having it bombarded every day. And all we have to do basically with him, all I have to say is, "Good morning, what's going on?" And then time to say goodbye. Quick hour later. But anyway, that gives you a little bit of an idea. And so, but we're going to talk more about the 7th Ward. I want to talk about with water. We've mentioned that as a thing. What do you think about if the city can't do it and somebody else can do it, and you can learn how to do it? And it should be that the water department bills people pay should it should be self-funded, and I think you're going to that way. Do you want to get rid of the guy, or do you think that we should keep that, or I don't, as people understand, I don't have a horse in this race, and because I don't live in a city, let alone in Jackson. I don't live there. I'm out in the country. Yeah. I'm country.
You're
folk.
Brandon. You're Brandon. I love messing with her. We're all Brandon, even though we're not.
We're
Brandon.
We're not Brandon. We're just a mailing address. The time that kills me was the guy who said, "I'm reporting from Spillway Road in Brandon." Like, ow.
You are not.
But anyway, no. I'm just a country girl and coming into the city here to talk. No, but what do you think about this guy? What do you think you should do about the water situation?
I have 3 priorities for our water system. The first priority is it needs to work. And when I say it needs to work, I mean it has to be clean, and it has to come out at a decent pressure. You need to be able to take a shower.
Houses.
You need to be able to wash your dishes. You need to be able to, do those kind of things. And that needs to be true in every corner of the city. And so priority number 1 is the water has to work. Priority number 2 is we have to be able to pay for it. And priority number 3 is we have to have a good, fair governance system. And frankly, I care about it in that order. So I think you're right. I mean, we were in a crisis where our water was not safe to drink. It was not working. We were constantly without water. And I was a school principal, and we were closing school because we couldn't. It was not sanitary to have that many people together. And so at that point, honestly, I was like, I don't care if it's Mr. Lumumba, if it's Mr. Hennepin, if it's Santa Claus, someone needs to get this stuff together.
Get it to work.
And frankly, at that point, it needs to be at no expense spared. I mean, we needed to get people need drink water. I mean, that's a safety issue at the highest order.
And you need to pay for it. You need to get your bills on time every month.
Correct.
The way it was explained to me was, of course, in the olden days, somebody came around and physically read the meter, and so you understood that. Well, then it got into the computer thing where you would start at your house. This was another thing I learned from Miller. It started at your house and would go to a way station, if that's the correct terminology, over here. Then it would take a left turn and go to a way station over here. Then it would go take another right turn and go up there someplace else. And then it would get to wherever it had to get to, whether Metro Center or wherever. Well, Yeah, there were a few glitches along the way. That was a terrible system. If you're going to use computers, it should go from one point to another and not take all these turns.
Well, the other issue I think is important.
It's got to pay for itself.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think is crucially important with the water system is you're always going to lose a little bit of water in transfer. So for every gallon that you pump out of the main station, you're not going to get a gallon to go to someone's house.
Why?
When you're talking about a system as large as Jackson, there's going to be small little leaks. I mean, that's nationwide. I mean,
Even up in Detroit City. Imagine that.
Everywhere.
You start leaking up there, you're in bad shape.
But here's what I'll say: you're always going to have a small degree of that. But Jackson has had a huge degree of that, and they've been able to get that down some. But they are still They have been able to get that down some, but they still have above the national average in the amount that is lost in the system. And so that is another place when you talk about wanting to save money, you don't lose water. I mean, because if you have a gallon that's leaving the main station and somebody and 0.8 of that gets to someone's house, then the whole system has lost 0.2 or whatever the numbers are. And so we have got to get some of those numbers under control as well.
Well, when the big water crash happened a few years ago, I call him Mr. Curtis and Mr. Fuel. Mr. Curtis, the newer one, with all the bells and whistles and computers, he just crashed. Whereas Mr. Fuel, the old boy down at Waterworks Curve, was working and kept the city going in a modicum of going for a while. And now there are people who want to shut down Fuel. Do you think Fuel should be shut down, or do you think you should have both of them because can't have enough help, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably does. Well, let me also say this. I don't know enough about the issue to speak on that, and so I would trust the experts in the system. But it seems to me that we don't need to be shutting those down at this point, and we need the help that we can get.
So you'll keep Hennepin for a while. You'd keep whatever they call it, third party or something like that. I call it government, but
the
DC.
other reality is we wouldn't have a choice. I mean, even if I wanted Hennepin out, which I don't necessarily do, but even if I did, well, I think that's a complicated question. But even if I did wanted Hennepin out, like what
are you going to replace them with? We don't have people,
right? And so I think the focus right now is how does the third-party manager and the city work as collaboratively as we possibly can in the interim and solve some of these problems. I'll also say this: I don't think Mr. Hennepin wants to be here forever. I don't think he wants ultimate control of the system in perpetuity. And so, I think it's at this point, it's let's make sure that the system works for everybody. Let's make sure that we're able to pay for it. And then once we do that, then I do think at some point the city will need to have some. I mean, if it's a system that's serving Jackson residents, I think it's fair that Jackson has representation in that process. Now, whether that means that it entirely becomes under the city's control again, or maybe you come up with a creative solution where maybe the governor names 3 members of a board and the mayor gets to name 3 members of the board, and however you arrange it. But I think I care about it in that order. I mean, number one is let's have good, clean water.
Have the water, and have a bill that reflects how much I used.
Yes.
And have that out in a timely fashion, like every month.
Yes.
Yeah, and that kind of
then
stuff.
let's look at the governance structure.
And then the other side of that is how do we maintain the system so that we don't get back into this problem?
Well, you got to have people. That's a people thing. Those are engineers that have to be hired for that. Both, water people, infrastructure people, and computer engineers.
And I guess that's where I'm leading. Well, how long does that take to find the right people?
Well, let's see. How old is Jackson? I don't want to make fun of it, but it's been a while. It's been a while since there have been some competent people working in those positions.
And again, I'm not trying to call anybody out. My question is, when should we start seeing or expecting all of this to kind of come together, the synergy and the promise that Jackson has? When do we start seeing something under your mindset? I would love your opinion on that, because like you said, we need people, we need systems, and we need to communicate.
It's like everybody's sitting there.
But how do we see some change? Where does that happen?
Yeah, I think, that's a complicated question, but I'll say you can expect some change pretty quickly, but it's not going to be it's not going to be overnight. You're not going to fix the entire system, but you can start to repair some of the potholes. potholes. You can start to repair some of the drainage issues. And what you need to do when you do that is you need to celebrate those small wins along the way. We've been in this system for so long where it's been a void of information at the city level, or if there is things that we're aware of, it's just bad. And some of that is warranted, some of them may not be warranted, but regardless, it's the situation that we're in. And so I think you need to start with the small progress, and then you need to celebrate that. You need to say, look at what we've done. We've made these improvements, and then that fuels, maybe a few more people will say, okay, I'm gonna give a shot. Let's move into Jackson. Let's start a business in Jackson. And then you celebrate that, and then more people happen, and more people happen, and more people happen. But you do, so in terms of when you're going to see results, where you're going to see some results right away, but they're not going to be the huge, it's not like every street is going to be repaired the day after the election. No. But you'll see some things, and then you use those things to build onto others. I do think you need to look at long-term sustainability. I do think that it's important to elect somebody who is going to be prepared to work for the long term, because it will take a while to see the big, long-lasting, substantial changes. And unfortunately, what we've seen is you can have progress, and then if you lose effective leadership, all that progress is lost. So we need to keep a good, long momentum. You'll see some changes right away, and then we need to. It's a spin wheel effect.
Well, tell me about the waste business. Is Richards doing the job, or does Waste Management need to be back, or what?
Well, Richards is better than no one. So we went for weeks
Yes.
with zero
Yes.
trash pickup at all. And I know people are sick of talking about that, but that is a colossal failure at the highest level. And everybody is culpable. The mayor and all city council is culpable for allowing that to happen. And it happened because there was a void of information. We had an initial proposal from a group that was out of state that was the cheapest option. That nobody even, everyone's comparing Richards and Waste Management. There was another option on the table. And that after some of the initial mess, they said, I'm out of here. I don't want any part of this. Y'all figure this out. And so.
But is it working? Is it working with Richards? Are they working? Are they doing what you need?
Yeah. It's better than having nobody at all. And so.
It's not the best.
I'm not convinced that it's necessarily the best option, but we can't ever allow a void of information or petty fighting or wanting to beat your chest or anything to get to so bad that we lose all garbage pickup entirely.
Well, with that point, we can end on trash, right? And then garbage stuff. Thanks a lot, Kevin Parkinson. Good luck with you.
Honor to be here. Thank you so much.
And so go out there and campaign real hard, and pretty soon it'll be all over with.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thank you, listeners.
Yep. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, have a good weekend. We'll see you next Tuesday with Dr. Glenn and Tizzo.